Chris Moses here with Gospel Progressions University, and this video is on when to use left-hand chords and when not to use left-hand chords. So why would we even use a left-hand chord? Well, fortunately, I do get into a few of the subtopics of left-hand chords in a playlist. I'm going to leave that playlist in the description. There's about 4 videos that cover it, but this is an important one. There are going to be times when it's necessary, and there are going to be times when it isn't really feasible to use it. So let's jump in. If you haven't downloaded my free guide as yet, the link is in the description. It's called What Do Pro Musicians Know That You Don't? Here are 2 reasons why we would actually use a left-hand chord or use chords on the left hand. The 2 reasons are that it frees up the right hand for melodies. This is a strategy that's used by a lot of jazz piano players, and that influence has come over to gospel or vice versa. There's been a cross influence, and it's used to actually bolster the chord and then give it a fuller sound. And my second point here would be for the second reason. There are many reasons, but this here is that it fills out your chords and it adds textures to the harmony. Some of the common misconceptions of left-hand chords is that you need to have a bass player. The assumption is that you're not going to play the root, and that's not always the case. Sometimes you will leave out the root, or you'll shift the root to a higher register, or the root may be part of the harmony. It may not be the lowest note played. When we talk a little bit about simple left-hand chords, like the simplest one would be what's known as a dyad. But a dyad, as the name would imply, di meaning 2, there's going to be 2 notes. So in the key of A, or whatever key, the chord of A, the dyad is usually going to be the 1 and 5, or the root and the 5th. So say for A major, we would take A and we would take E. Or the chord D, we would take D and A. So we have the root and the 5th. All right, another chord would be E. We have the root and the 5th. And then we would have F sharp minor. We have the root and the 5th. Now you'll notice with these dyads, with these left-hand voices that I'm doing here, these left-handed power chords as they're called. They're also known as power chords. On a guitar, you would play a root, a 5th, and I'll bring it down here, a root, a 5th, and a root, or just a root and a 5th. So people don't say these are chords because this is the same note doubled, but without getting into technicalities, understand that this is your basis for building your left-hand chords. Besides a dyad, another type of simple left-hand chord is something called a tritone or a shell voicing. A tritone is a note or a set of 2 notes that are 3 whole tones apart. So for example, D, tritone away from D would be you go up a step, you get E, you go up another step, you get F sharp, another step, you get G sharp. So we have our tritone here. Inverting that, we have G sharp, go up a step, we have A sharp, we go up a step, we have C, and then D. So this is you'd use commonly. This is a common method that's used by gospel keyboard musicians to play in their left hand. Your shell voicing would be either these 2 notes, or you would play a root. You could play triad away, and then you could play another flat 7 or minor 7th away. So like for D, D, E, A, F sharp, sorry, G, A, B, C sharp, and D. So we flat the 7th, and we have this chord here, and then we have, you can just take this and play the D, G sharp, and the C. Now the voicing, the kind of chord, what I'm playing here isn't relevant to, you have to know exactly what this voicing is, but it's just to show you what a shell voicing may look like. More relevant may be something in the key of C. You may use a 1, you'll see people use a root and a 5th and then go up to a 9th. Okay, and this is another type of shell voice, and the purpose of it is to make room for the melody and make room for the other instruments. In jazz, it's called comping. You have a lot of instrumentation going on and playing with other people, and you just want to have a basic harmony so you're not crowding the music too much. So what we need to do is practice them and build up comfort. As I said, we'll take this song, Waymaker, in the key of A major, and we'll start out with the first chord. So the song starts out from the 4th chord of A, which would be A, B, C sharp, and D. And we'll use a power chord for D and A. So we have the first power chord here. We can practice this in our left hand, right? We go from D to A, and then the second chord is going to be A. So we play the A and the E power chord. We can even do this. And we go to the 5 chord. E and B, E, B and E, and then we go to the final chord, which would be F sharp. So this is what you want to practice. You want to take your left hand and play. You can start by playing just the DYADS / power chords, and then go to the A. You can go to B down, E and B down here, or up here, and then go down here. And then from that, we can build on it, okay? So we can take our D and A, and D, A, and D, and then A, E, and A. We can go to E, B, and E, and F sharp, C sharp, F sharp. So practicing this along with the music or with a metronome, very important, but it'll get your hands acclimated to moving in ways that are independent of your right hand without actually having to play just a single note. Because you can play the song with a single note, and we can do some things with it, but the key, the pitch that it's in, the key that it's in, even if you brought it up a step because of the way the melody works, there's still some things that would sound weird if we were to play it just with the chords in the position of the melody, meaning that the melody would be, so if you play that all the way, now this melody ends on this F sharp over here. And this is important where your register is on your keyboard whenever you're playing left-hand voices. If I play a chord here on my left hand, it'll sound completely different than I played over here. This sounds more appropriate to what I would even do with my right hand. But over here, it's way too low. How do I know that? Well, the years of playing, I can hear what it sounds like. Let's jump into how we'd actually use this left-hand voice and what the actual strategy is to be effective in this and to get the most out of this. So we have the song, we know the melody. It's rule number one. If you're gonna learn these left-hand chords, learn the melody like you know your name. All right, so we understand what the melody is, and it starts in the C sharp, right? Right? So we end up here. Now, when I look at the chords, and I look at where this ends, I want this note on top. But there's a problem here. And what the problem is that the way the keyboard's voicing is, the way the register is, creates an issue if I try to make a chord with this note on top. Now, as a general rule of thumb, I like to break the keyboard down into sections, or look at the different sections and look at where I wouldn't go past if I'm going to play left-hand voicing. In other words, this, on an 88 key keyboard from left to right, it's 88 keys, this is known as your middle C, or also in MIDI language, would be known as C3. So middle C, C right in the middle, is C3. As I go up, it's C4, C5, C6, C7, etc., right? We go in the opposite direction, we decrease. C3, C2, C1, C0, -1, or C1, etc. All right, that's simple enough to understand. But as a rule, for myself, I like to look at C3 and I'm like, all right, I'm getting the low register for left-hand voices. As I get down from C3 down to C2, I generally don't want to go past this with certain sounds. And when I say certain sounds now, I don't necessarily mean everything that I'm playing in the left hand. Because here's the thing. Whenever you use power chords / DYADS, right? Say for D and A, the beautiful thing is you can bring them down pretty low and they still sound good. It's just the way the registry works for this note here, because you go from D to A to D, it sounds decent down here. It doesn't sound bad. It's dark, but not too dark. And it also, another thing about these kind of chords, they don't give away the entire chord quality, meaning that if I play the D and A, a lot of guitars do this. Well, it's an ambiguous sound, meaning that is it minor or is it major? Well, there's no way to really tell because it's just the root and the fifth. So it's left open to interpretation. It's a very open sound. Hence, it's why it's used in something, as I mentioned, called a shell voicing. Now, when we look at the entire structure of the chord and the way the melody lands, right, we're okay for this, okay? So we do. Conventionally, we're going to play it, right? We want to have our melody on top. And the next chord is going to be A, right? So I'll play like this. We're getting really low. All right, now we're down here. Now, when I'm playing this, I'm thinking to myself, this is really, really dark. And the chord is way down here, and this isn't necessarily something I'm looking for. Again, it's no hard and fast rule like, oh my goodness, this chord is gonna sound bad. Well, it depends how the keyboard may be EQ'd in the sound system. You still have some wiggle room, but up to a point. After a while, it's useless. You know, it's not really helping anything going down so low. So now how do we combat something like that? Well, whenever we listen to songs, you'll notice that whenever there's an intro to a song, introduce the melodic line, or even if there's a solo, it's normally played in a higher register. Solos don't go way down here, or backing melodic lines, meaning a backing melodic line that's something to be playing a harmony, or even just defining the song by the melody, because the song is going to be defined by a recognizable melody. So what we would do is just bring it up a register. So instead of playing it, and that's the sung register. The sung register may not necessarily be the register you want to play at, for good reason. Because as we build these chords, we're going to start to add things now to it. So the first thing now, let's look at the way it would be played with a power chord. So we already know that we're going to bring it up an octave, because the power chord bringing it down here is going to be way, way too low. If we did this, it would sound ridiculous. So we have this, right? All right, we have first power chord is going to be D, A, right? And we can do this if we wanted to. We can bring this down an octave. Typically, you'll see keyboard players, they'll play a little closer. But I'll do this. All right, we have our power chord here. Now you hear the difference in the power chords and the clarity, and as far as the articulation of the voicing, it's much clearer. It sounds better, although it's outside of the register of the actual sung notes. So there's a difference right there. So now with that, we have more room to experiment and to add texture and color to our chords, even for a simple chord progression such as a 4, 1, 5, 6 chord progression. In this case, 4 being D, 1 being A, 5 being E, and 6 being the F sharp chord. So we can add things now. So now the first chord we're going to take is the D chord, right? So we have this, and we know that it lands on the downbeat and that F sharp for the melody. So we can take the D, A now, we can extend the chord now, and then use another type of shell voicing, right? So now we have D, A, and C sharp. Typically with chords like this, a 4 chord, we can use a major 7th sound, or a major 7th chord. So we have this D major 7th. If you played it in its root position, it would be D, F sharp, A, and C sharp. But we don't want root position. We want the position of where the melody is, so it's the 3rd. So the 3rd is the top note. So we have this. Okay, so now we have our first left-hand voice. So we can just start here. And now for this next chord now, we can do this, right? We can take the next chord, and now if we wanted to stretch it, we go A, have a 5, and now we can add a 2nd. The 2nd from A, or 2, will be the whole step up from A, giving us a B. So we have this. So now the chord sounds fuller. Although it's a higher register, typically with higher notes, whatever parts like are written for horns or whatever, there's concert pitch and there's different things that go along with that, but they're going to be written within a particular type of register because, well, the limitations of the instrument itself, or the limitations of just the way sound works. Sometimes, with most instruments, sound tends to thin out. You have less dynamics than when you have a lower sound. Lower sound in general give more dynamics. Higher sounds tend to be thinned out. This is why you would use the chords in your left hand to build the harmony and to add the texture. Because just playing this by itself is going to sound, with just a note, is going to sound super thin if you just did this. All right, we ended on the melody. Yeah, the melody would be the F sharp all the way up here, or even over here. It's better here actually than it is up here. But down here, it's going to sound outright. This is an outrage. So now, getting back to this, right? So we have the first chord. We know this D, A, C sharp, right? And then we have this chord here, all right? And then we can add now, like I said, the B, all right? And then we have the next chord is going to be, we can take the B now. And like I said, we can even do this. If you can't make the reach for here, you can still, for here, you can do this too. All right? So we have, we can do this now. We can take the E, B, and then we can add the F sharp. you can add it over here as well. You can double up on it. Just as long as that melody's on top. Important. Learn that melody, keep the melody on top. So we have this over here, right? And this sounds good because I'm still above that C3, okay? And I have them spread apart, almost like how a guitar player would make chords and stuff like that, okay? And it sounds good. It sounds better than having it, you know, just all the way down here. But you know, you can also do this as well, depending on what sound you're looking for. There's nothing wrong with this. But again, because you have it more filled out than just playing the root in your left hand, a single root with a triad on your right hand. So we know we have this fifth chord here, right? The third chord will be the fifth chord for the key of A. All right. And now we go, I worship you. We can now take the F sharp, C sharp, and then we can go E. All right, even do this. So we can take now, we can add more things in our right hand, okay? And put a little more color in our left hand, F sharp, C sharp, E. And then we have the A and the B together, this second on 9. Second, I would say, C sharp and F sharp. Again, so, all right, same chord as before, and now we can stretch it out a little bit. I'm sorry, the first chord would be D, so we can stretch it out a little bit. All right, not a big stretch. Okay, if you want to be adventurous, you can add the E. All right, and I like to make the melody thinner as far as if I'm building it that much. I don't want to do. I'm not gonna play the entire triad. I'm gonna play 2 notes apart that maybe like a major 6, A to F sharp is a major 6, and then the G sharp, all right, to the E. We have that as a minor 7 or a flat 7. All right, that interval, and then this interval here from the E to the C sharp would be a major 6th. And that's how I would leave it open. Organists do that as well to have more of an open sound. So the shell voicing almost is going to be in the right hand as it would be on the left hand. So as we continue for that again, we know we're looking at these chords. We're going to have our D major 7. And then we can add, you know, the B here as you play this chord here. You can add, if it's just too much of a stretch, you can add the B in your right hand. Next chord is going to be the E. And we have this chord here, as we said. Do that, we can do this. All right, and so there's plenty of things that we can actually do and continue and add. For that part of the song, if you're just playing just the melody, you want to make sure that your right hand is in the same type of position because the melody will always land in the same place. And that's what you need to do. But then as you comp or you just have an accompaniment where you're playing just chords behind it, it doesn't really matter where the melody lands because you may be playing to have harmony for the established melodies already established. You know, there's harmony for maybe a singer or guitar player and be playing over you. And that's when you don't worry so much about where the melody lands. You don't always have to be stuck. I gotta play the melody on the top. It has to be done because you'll be playing with a full band. Somebody else may have the melody. You just keep it in harmony. So these left-hand chords help you to interchange your job. This keyboard is a very versatile instrument. However, just keep in mind, you have to know the melody. Make sure that melody is known very well. And you could start out slowly by just playing these power chords or these DYADS. Remember the root and the fifth in your left hand. And then you can add, you can, just get out of the regular the shell voicing or just extend it a little bit by putting a root, a fifth, and maybe a seventh or a second. Practice stretching out and things like that for your left hand. And then it frees up your right hand while bringing more texture to your overall playing. I hope this has blessed you and I hope this has helped you. If you are having a hard time keeping up, if you're struggling, well, I have good news for you. I do have a course. It's called Black Gospel Keyboard for Beginners 101. My 101 course is over 6 hours long, chock full of examples. I go from, if you've never seen a keyboard before, never played anything, to all the way to being able to play music in your local church. There's a bunch of examples, there's quizzes, and there's other things there, bonus material to help you to reinforce your education and reinforce your learning. The link will be left there in the description. Also, if this is just too simple for you, well, I do have my ear training, my advanced ear training for gospel musicians available as well. This is a course that's about 3 hours long, and I get into all of my tricks and all of the different things that I actually use. I go into a whole lot of in-depth stuff, more than what I spoke about today in that course. The link will be in the description for that as well. God bless you. Thank you for your attention, and I will see you in the next video.